This is basically developed, what it started as was a plugin for Unity. Now it'll be sort of a standalone thing to where you need absolutely no knowledge of Unity, which is one of the more common game engines, which also happens to be free.
Yeah, the whole thing is free, open source.
Once we initialize our setting here, we are going to be prompted to add a 360 video. So I navigate to my resources folder and I pick the video that I want. The video that we're going to have in the background today is a combination of 360 videos shot by my students in Austin. So basically, this is your sort of viewport or your composition window if you used a Premiere or After Effects or anything like that, or Final Cut. We have the ability in real time to move around as this video is occurring. We also have, if you click the left mouse button, it sort of locks your perspective, so you can interact with other parts of the interface here. We have full timeline controls on the bottom, scrubbing controls to go back and forth throughout the video. We've really tried to make this as similar to something like, Premiere, ideally, we sort of target with this one. I can pause it and then drag around, move the image, manipulate the image. But what is really cool about what the students have done here, under RB&I and Brian McCann, Tan, and a couple other people's guidance, is actually add this layer of interactivity. So if you look up here, I'm going to try to make this a little bit bigger. We have the typical save project, save as, build, adding new 360 videos. We even have a section that we're developing, almost done with, where you can add your own CSS for style. So if an organization wanted to do this, their fonts, colors, and bugs, logos, etc. would be imported into this. But what I want to show you today is our ability to add images, 3D objects, and then text. So,
as well as video within the video.
Video within video. So one thing, if anybody has done any work with 360 video here, and I'm going to put on a more appealing still while we go through this. There we go. If anybody has done any work with 360 video here, outside of an environment like this, you will know that it is incredibly time consuming. When you bring it into a program like After Effects or even Premiere and you start stacking layers, you start doing work, there is absolutely no way for instance, an editor to be looking over your shoulder and see your work in real time. You're going to have to say, I'm very sorry, can you come back in 8 hours? Because that's about how long it's going to take to process. What's cool about this, 100% real time, because we're utilizing the strengths of the game engine. So for instance, in this part of the video, if I wanted to add an image, I'm going to click on my image button. I'm going to navigate to my resources folder, and I'm going to import a picture of this cute dog. All right. If I click on the image, I can drag it to wherever I want. If I use middle mouse button, I can scale it. And this could be any sort of image. This could be an infographic that someone in your team has created, talking about this. This is a rehab center for giraffes in Austin. I know that sounds funny, but it exists. It's about 10, 15 miles outside of town. This could be a fact sheet with an alpha channel, so the text would be invisible with your graphic design and any sort of the stuff you wanted. You can rescale it. One of the coolest features, when you watch things in a headset and things aren't rotated properly in XYZ space, mostly Y-axis, everything will sort of look like it's attached to your face. If I press the R button here, I'm going to enter rotate mode, and I can actually rotate the image here. So it'll feel more like it's actually in the environment, which is really cool. The other thing that's awesome with that, and let's do a text heading here. If I click on my text heading, I double click to enter in, and I'm going to say Austin Giraffe Rehab. In here, I can once again move this wherever I want. I can scale it, and with my rotate key, I can sort of make it aligned with the video and give it a little bit of depth, right? So once again, it's not like it's completely locked to my POV. It's little things like that that will make the video really stand out. Because if you're watching a lot of stuff that's out there right now, they're not using any sort of XYZ rotation info, everything always seems locked to your eyes. So especially when you have a ton of content like that on the screen, it can be very disorienting. The other cool thing, much like any of your NLEs, Premiere, Avid, Final Cut, we do have a layer-based system down here. So I can actually control the time of when I want this to appear on screen. So for instance, if I wanted my Austin Giraffe title to come up and then my Husky image, I press play, there's my Austin Giraffe title, and there's my Husky image. I'm going to move it back a minute just so you can actually see it pop up. Oops, let me press pause. And I can actually, we have not built in the ability to keyframe position changes, but that's something that's on the roadmap potentially ahead. The last thing that I'd like to show you all here is, I'm going to go back to a shot where we have the sky. I would like to put in a 3D model. And this, is, to me, really cool in the sense of we did a piece for mission control in NASA. And one of the things that we did was explore the changes from past to present to future that was going on in that building. One of the things that I'm really excited about with using that as a piece of demo material is that NASA has a wealth and collection of 3D models that you can use to supplement the experience for someone. So right here under 3D object, if I click that, if I navigate to my directory where I have those objects, which is the exact same and will be included in the documentation, I can double click and import a model here. You'll see it right here. I can move it wherever I want. This is the ISS. I can rotate it. And if I'm feeling super adventurous, I could even add lighting to it to make it seem like it fits more in the scene. And for example, with our Pope piece, at a certain point in time when we were going to develop it in this method, he has his Pope mobile, so we would have done sort of a turntable with the Pope mobile with some facts popping up. But
right, so a good example of like how you would do this for a story with the right video is we would take the 360 video we shot in Mission Control, and we shot in the current Mission Control that they're basically trying to modernize, and then the old Mission Control that's a museum preserved just as it was in the late 1960s. So if you were in
I can actually show that.
yeah, if you're in the 1960s one, you would be, let's say, at Gene Kranz's desk. Okay, so when you're at like the
So this is
the current one. So that's, for example, where the 3D graphic could come up.
Sure.
So you're at the desk of a person controlling the space station. You have that person's audio, because you can also import audio.
And there's
using
there's
this.
the ISS right there
Yeah.
too. So now we have this sort of floating in space here as a representation.
Right, so you're at the person's literal desk. You could import audio of that person talking about what he's doing and then have the graphic showing that. Or you could go and have a video come up to illustrate something, or a photo, an archival image.
And so, for instance, this is our 1960s NASA room, which they still have perfectly preserved. So if I wanted to put this down there, we even did some experiments where, one of the biggest issues with these cameras, no matter if you're using high-end cameras, which we're about to show you, is one of our last things, or even the GoPros or the Kodaks, is when we talk about resolution these days, what we really are talking about is subject distance and background distance. You can have the highest resolution cameras in the world, and you can be using Red Epics. For those of you who know, those are Hollywood-level cameras. But still, after about 40 feet, you're going to start getting a huge degradation in your image quality. And that mainly has to do with the fact that we're stitching multiple feeds together using super wide-angle lenses, so distortion starts to become a huge issue. With a tool like this, it is not inconceivable that you can bring in video in video, picture in pictures, and replace the content on this screen with, site-accurate material that you would be providing provided with, thereby, enhancing the experience a little bit more.
And then before we wrap up this part, do you want to explain how it would then be output to
Absolutely.
headsets?
So there are two main methods in which this could happen. One, and this would be for PCs only, because PCs are currently the only, so no Macs for now. Oculus and HTC currently only run on PCs. And Samsung Gear VR is, of course, an Android architecture. But the two export methods would be just from this interface that we have, creating a build, right? And the build would be individualized for each of your stories. So much like the Washington Post website here, you would have your story, and then you would have these options to download. The other way to do it is within Unity, there's a plugin that allows you to export an equirectangular 360 video. So what you're losing there, and this is your choice, is the level of interactivity. So then, in a sense, this would just be a point A to